a warm welcome to our special report, the program that brings you a ground zero view from whichever part of the country the Rajya Sabha TV cameras are travelling. This week we are in the northeastern state of Assam on the Indo-Bhutan border in the district of Kokrajhar, which is known for its ethnic violence. More than 300 tribes or communities are clashing amongst each other time and again, but the state governments and the central governments have not been able to resolve this issue, which is almost more than 5 decades old. Over the next 30 minutes, let's find out the real picture of ethnic violence in Assam. August 2014 sent shockwaves across Assam. 16-year-old Priya Basumatari shot down at a point-blank range as punishment for reportedly leaking information on the movements of 5 National Democratic Front of Bodoland, that is Shongbajit faction cadres. Police and security forces then conducted an operation and killed those 5 cadres on the spot. Seeking retribution, NDFBS cadres armed with sophisticated weapons came to the Dumugri village and compelled local residents to gather at a place before they shot Priya dead and eventually took back her body with them.
Indian Army ahi pele mara nai te Ranjan Demari group pura mara hoise eto aro ejon informer asili eto sagomor eto falpoa swali e swali he yontok mane inform kotisile eto ami gom pai pela aji sagomor falpoa swali to amiyo marba laga hol
अभी हैं कुछ जैसे मिडिल लेवल कार्डर्स हैं, काफ़ी पकड़े गए हैं, टॉप में भी इन्होंने जैसे हमने बताया, और कुछ प्लाटून कमांडर्स हैं काफ़ी ऑलरेडी सिक्योरिटी फोर्सेस के पास में हैं। और जिस तरह हमारी अभी सिनर्जी बाकी सिक्योरिटी फोर्स के साथ चल रही है, पैरामिलिट्री फोर्सेस हैं और पुलिस है, उनके साथ जो ऑपरेशन चल रहे हैं, मेरे को यकीन है कि कुछ टाइम में और अच्छे रिजल्ट्स सामने आएंगे।
This incident triggered widespread condemnation, but the people of the BTAD region, that is Bodoland Territorial Area districts, live in constant fear. Cycle of violence between NDFB militants and ethnic communities has been a recurring feature in this northeastern state, resulting in the deaths of lakhs of people. Rajya Sabha TV crew visited the ground zero of the BTAD region of Assam only to find out that the solution to the problem still remains a far cry. What is the root cause of the ethnic clashes in Assam? Turning the pages of history is important. National Democratic Front of Bodoland, that is NDFB, an armed separatist outfit, has been seeking to obtain a sovereign Bodoland for the Bodo people of Assam. NDFB claims to address the grievances of the Bodos like underdevelopment and influx of the immigrants. It also demands a separate state of Bodoland. Bodos, who are the aboriginals of the area and the biggest tribal groups of Assam, have clashed with the Adivasi tea tribes, the Muslim settlers and even the Bengali Hindus. Bodos, with slightly more than 30% of the total population, are minority against the non-Bodos, which comprise about 70% of the population.
There is a question of conflict of where the arms are involved. So, in constant view of this violence, we, like from All Bodo Students Union, we have always condemned it, and as such the last recent violence what has occurred was condemnable to the highest extent because of the innocent villagers, and then it was been brutally killed by the insurgent organization, that is National Democratic Front of Bodoland, Shongbajit faction. So that actually it does not reflect towards the whole factor of that Bodos are all using arms, because that is a very organized group who actually has indulged into such inhuman action.
Over 3 decades now, Bodos have seen parallel insurgent movement and democratic agitation centered on Kokrajhar for a separate Bodo state. Thus, the non-Bodos have been pushed to the brink despite the fact that they are more in numbers.
See, these violences, of course, as you mentioned, this is not frequently happens. Yes, sometimes it comes, sometimes it happens. The root cause of this ethnic violence, it goes back to basically identity problem relating to the land disputes. This is between two ethnics and both are part and parcel of Assamese social life.
Land becomes one of the important things for quarrel among the communities because the same land they want to occupy. And as the days have passed, area of land has become smaller and number of people has increased. So that has given rise to the tension. So that tension is the first tension which gives rise to the conflict between the two groups.
So why has BTAD region become a cauldron of veritable brutal ethnic violence? It's all about different indigenous groups having their political and social aspirations. And in the BTAD region specifically, it's all about Bodos versus the non-Bodos who are living in complete isolation. The Bodoland movement has been mainly led by the political organizations of All Bodo Students Union and Bodo People's Action Committee. In 1993, these two groups signed the Bodo Accord with Indian government, agreeing to the formation of Bodoland Autonomous Council within Assam. It's more than 2 decades almost since the time this Bodoland Legislative Assembly building was constructed. There's governance happening, but in the absence of a strong opposition, the style is more or less arbitrary. There's no audit which has taken place. And to top it all, there's reluctance on the part of the state government to intervene in the day-to-day matters of the BTC. So far, there are 2 separate regulations for administering the tribal land in the northeast India. One being the 6th schedule of Indian Constitution to administer the land of hill tribes and another being Assam Land and Revenue Act of 1886 for regulating land inhabited by Plains Tribal of Assam. Except the Bodoland Territorial Council, which has a double-edged sword due to having covered by both 6th scheduled and the Assam Land and Revenue Regulation Act 1886. This particular act has been amended sufficiently at various points of time from 1947 to 1990. But ironically, this act, which has the teeth to protect the tribal land from being encroached, has been conveniently ignored, and result today is tribes gradually becoming minority in their own land. Time is ripe now to take a relook at the Bodo Accord which was signed. So are you ready to revisit the Bodo Accord again?
See, I don't think that relook is enough unless you provide employment. This is my development is the only way.
Okay.
Accord is a...
So first you're saying that we should find avenues of employment and then only you talk about that.
Is a livelihood. If you provide livelihood, other issues can be resolved.
Many ethnic communities, because of their quarrel among themselves, they have got some small armed group. And later on, actually, some of the militant groups with the sophisticated arms have also come up. Result is, when there is a fight between 2 ethnic communities, and mostly in the remote areas, and this happens in the bordering areas of Assam, with the Bhutan border, with the Arunachal border, Mizoram border, Nagaland border, in those areas, at times there is a conflict and killing also becomes in the higher side.
Assam has 6 autonomous councils and by and large they have failed to bring any change in the lives of the tribals dotting these areas. In these district councils, the ethnic minorities hardly find a representation either by election or nomination, which is a violation of the 6th schedule again. District councils have failed to set up courts with competent staff. Considerations of political patronage, nepotism and favoritism in the matter of recruitment are rampant in the district councils, which impinges on financial resources of the councils. Another reason for the inadequate performance of the councils is their dependence on state governments for financial grants and allotments. Many times people say that the BTC is very discriminatory because you try and tend to isolate the Adivasis, but you don't isolate the Bodos. How far is that true?
That is completely untrue. We are trying to absorb every community in the council, though there are some communities who cannot represent in the council because their number is very less. And Adivasi, especially since you have mentioned, we have 3 Adivasi representatives in the council, and 1 or 2 persons are executive member in the council. They are looking after some departments. And we have problem with the Adivasis because some underground organizations, they create problem in the forest area. Bodo people have encroached in the forest area, and the Adivasis have encroached in the forest area, and for this or that reason.
The fifth schedule of the Constitution, which provides a shield for the heartland tribes, has been grossly violated and disregarded. While few have cared to examine as to why the autonomous councils of the Northeast 6 schedule areas have not worked as intended, concepts of non-territorial devolution and sharing await serious exploration. The 6th schedule prohibits the transfer of land from a tribal to a non-tribal. Most of the district councils have not yet made laws regarding the landholding system in their respective jurisdictions. The basic structure of the customary or traditional system of land tenure remains the same, which often results in clashes within the minorities.
This is not basically a Hindu Christian problem, or not like that. This is between two ethnics, and both are part and parcel of Assamese social life.
Councils have to be empowered more, because councils' existence is entirely on the mercy of the state government. If they want survival of the council, they can continue it, or they don't want continuation or working of the councils, they can do it. That is why councils have to be empowered more.
People in the BTAD region say that Adivasis or the indigenous tribals never get a priority by the BTAD Council. It's the Bodos who are given a preference, and which is why there's so much of bad blood between the Bodos and the Adivasis, which often result in violence.
Bodo Council is very aggressive for the development works in the area. That is why many people think like we are concerned about our development only. We are concerned about working everything for the people of this area. That is why the state government is, since we are not in the same boat politically, that is why they are creating problem through somebody or some organizations, like bringing allegation that the councils are not looking after or taking care of other communities' interests.
Time for a short break. Don't go away. We'll come back with plenty more on the other side. Back in a moment. December 2014, a series of attacks by militants resulted in deaths of more than 76 Adivasis in Assam. The attacks took place in Chirang, Sonitpur and Kokrajhar districts. The attacks have been attributed to the Shongbajit faction of National Democratic Front of Bodoland. Forest dwellers inside hutments like these in the Salbari village of Kokrajhar were struck down with sheer savagery by the Bodo militants on the night of 23rd December 2014, where about 70 Adivasis were killed. Experts say that there is an invariable pattern which is visible as far as the ethnic killings in Assam are concerned. First, the militants strike, followed by bouts of communal and ethnic clashes. This infant has no one to fall back on. His father was shot dead at a point-blank range by the NDFBS militants and is now being looked after by an Adivasi family.
NDFB ने जो मसाखर किया आदिवासी के ऊपर में, वो तो बहुत गलत काम किया। उन लोग सोचना था कि आदिवासी भी ट्राइबल लोग हैं, तो NDB वो तो उग्रवादी है, तो बोड़ो भी ट्राइबल आदमी है। बोड़ो लोग से वोट NDB एक उग्रवादी निकल गया, तो इसलिए आदिवासी की ऊपर में वो लोग जो हमला किया वो तो बहुत बड़ा गलती काम किया।
A sense of insecurity looms large in these Adivasi villages in Assam. Just about 2 weeks ago, there was a convention held between the Adivasis and the Bodos where they resolved to bring in peace, tighten security and also bring up a robust demand for an ST status. But on the ground, the situation is really precarious as the people say that there could be another Bodo and Adivasi clash. Most of these killings is taking place because of the right of control over land, resources and identity issues. The tribes, big or small in number, does not matter, but there is a natural impulse for dignified living among them, upholding their own distinct identity. Each time an ethnic violence takes place in Assam, it displaces thousands and thousands of people and deprives them of their basic needs of food, shelter, clothing, access to safe drinking water and sanitation. But the biggest tragedy of this man-made crisis is that it provides immediate relief, but there is no rehabilitation of these internally displaced persons. The tribes also overlap in their territorial claims. A tribe ruling a particular territory is being ruled in another same contiguous region.
Adivasis are the poorest of poor. So definitely these people carrying less economic income with very low level of living standard. Also educationally they are very deprived, and geographically also they are pushed out in such a places like at present where I am sitting, where we are standing here.
The tribal habitats are equally cohabited by the sizable number of non-tribal people also. In such a scenario, very often rights of the non-tribal and tribal over land gets very complicated. The existing policies and laws relating to tribal land restrict the rights of the non-tribal.
From the people, the affected people, they demanded that at least they should have given ration for 2 or 3 months. But this is not given to them, and they are left at the mercy of Uparwala.
This vast tract of land which you see behind me is actually a reserved forest. The traditional forest dwellers stay in those dwellings. You can see that there is no semblance of development here, and that is what the real problem is, because according to the laws of the land, no development activity can take place in a forest area. Even the Home Ministry admits to the fact that the solution has to be found on a humanitarian basis. In and around Kokrajhar and other violence-hit districts, development remains a far cry. There are no schools for children except for the ones which are run by NGOs, and there also the presence of the teachers is minimal because of the fear of the recurring clashes.
Some police people seize these militant groups with arms, but they do not shoot at any of them. What is the government criteria?
So basically, they are arresting the people, but not shooting them. They are not killing them. We travelled across the villages post the killings of the Adivasis only to find that it had a mind-numbing effect on the livelihood of the people.
अभी मेरी जिंदगी तो बस ऐसे बढ़ा रहा क्योंकि कुछ है नहीं घर में, क्या करो, इसमें कितना दिन रहना पड़ेगा हम लोग तो कोई बोल नहीं सकता है।
रेशन पानी तो पावाना सरकार पड़ा जे हमारे बीटीसी पड़ा बीटीसी सरकारी अलमान दिया आछे बर्तमान।
Right now I am at a village called Jambogiri, which is part of Kokrajhar, and this is a Bodo village, and less than half a kilometer from here are the Adivasi villages. Let's talk to a few Bodos here. आपका नाम क्या है?
जी मेरा नाम गंगा बासुमतारी है।
गंगा बासुमतारी। अच्छा मुझे ये बताइए, आए दिन जो बोडो और आदिवासियों के बीच में जो ये लड़ाइयाँ होती रहती हैं, इससे गांव की जो पूरी जिंदगी है उस पर क्या असर पड़ा है?
तो आपको डर तो है, और आधा किलोमीटर है सामने में होता है आदिवासी और बोरो का, तो उसमें डर तो होगा, शायद वो लोग भी आके बोरो को मारेगा शायद, इसलिए वही डर है।
Even villages which are inhabited by the Bodos have not been spared. Movements of any strangers through these villages raises suspicion amongst the residents. This Bodo village looks desolate, people scared to come out of their homes. Their daily earnings impacted to the core. For example, meet this lady and hear her story.
एक दंडो दोकान दिया और घरे करी आनिबार लागे किबा आनिबार लागे इता आनिबार ना पाय आमी এখন।
This lady does not have land. She says that she earns her livelihood by making these rice puris, and after the Bodos and the Adivasis attacked each other, since that time her business has majorly got affected, but now again she has started coming back to normalcy, but the business has not picked up. The immediate trickle effect of these ethnic clashes are the large number of internally displaced people. According to a report by the Asian Center for Human Rights, there are around 300,000 internally displaced persons in Assam, which has been the highest in the world in the year 2014.
As the days have passed, every community, they are now asserting themselves regarding their culture, regarding their heritage, regarding all other factors. So what has happened? This has also given rise to some tension.
You drive across the belt of Kokrajhar, Chirang, Sonitpur and Udalguri, you'll come across relief camps like these. Citizens have fled their homes and are staying in clusters. Government is supposed to be providing rations and give access to basic livelihood, but all that has not been sufficient.
अभी कहाँ रह रही हैं?
वो कैंप में रह रहा है।
सरकार तो बोलता है कि इस समय कोई रिलीफ कैंप में नहीं चल रहा है।
तो कैंप अभी तक है, सरकार अपने ऑफिशियल से रिलीज कर दिया, लेकिन अभी तक उसको पकड़ पाया नहीं पकड़ पाया, इसलिए कि हमारा आदमी डर लगता है जाने के लिए, नहीं गया है अभी।
और यहाँ पे रिलीफ कैंप्स की क्या हालत है? राशन पानी आ रहा है, सब कुछ आ रहा है?
राशन पानी अभी बंद हुआ है, बंद कर दिया सरकार ने।
क्या बोल के?
पता नहीं क्या बोल के बंद कर दिया, अभी दिया ही नहीं।
पता नहीं हम लोग क्या क्यों मरता है क्यों नहीं मरता है तो पता नहीं है।
When we tried speaking to the DC of the area, he refused to come on the camera but did emphasize that everything was normal and that there were no relief camps. We drove further across and dotting the areas were nothing but relief camps right in the middle of the forest areas.
I've travelled to almost 6 to 7 villages in the BTAD region, and right now I am at Salbari village of Kokrajhar. Let me tell you, across the villages you'll find relief camps like these set up right in the middle of the reserved forests. Governments have denied the presence of such camps, but on the ground it's a reality where people will tell you horrific stories where their houses were burned down, villagers were massacred at the point-blank range. People here shudder at the thought of a gun firing.
Conflict-induced internal displacement has become a major cause of concern. There have been at least 13 major clashes since 1993 in Assam, claiming thousands of lives while displacing lakhs of people. The biggest irony is that those affected by violence and shifted to relief camps are unable to return to their homes even after normalcy returns.
This little infant in my lap is just about 7 days old. He was born here in the relief camp. For kids like him, these relief camps have become permanent settlements as the inmates refuse to go back to their villages out of fear. But what could be a bigger misfortune than this, that their country's own people have got internally displaced?
Dealing with the content is my job, but primary responsibility is center. Extremists. I'm not talking about day to day. If there is a day-to-day law and order, yes. Responsibility lies with the state government. When dealing with insurgency, the primary responsibility lies with the central government.
Various groups have been demanding time-bound program for the rehabilitation but still have failed to instill confidence in the communities.
हम लोग सोचना में ये है, सरकार तो इतना दिन 1 महीना हो गया रिलीफ नहीं दिया, तो कैसे हम लोग रह नहीं सकेंगे। इसके लिए अपना काम करने के लिए, अपना खेती फसल पाने के लिए घर में जाते हैं दिन में और दोपहर में आते हैं रिलीफ में रहने के लिए।
The fact of the matter is that every tribal community in Assam possesses weapons, and that's their major source of defense. Be it the clash between the Bodos and the Muslims, or Bodos versus Adivasis, or the Bangladeshi immigrants. Weapons have become mandatory for the tribals. But behind this framework is the gory presence of the militants who've complicated the picture.
I'm right now at the Indo-Bhutan border, and the two diverging roads which you see there are India on the right and Bhutan on the left. Now, what complicates the ethnic violence story in Assam is the presence of many militant outfits which sneak into Assam easily, perpetrate violence, and then they go back to Bhutan. And this is what becomes the most challenging task for the security forces.
The security forces say that they are helpless in nabbing the militants because they travel through the thick jungles where forces cannot reach.
Militants also think that these are the undeveloped areas, these are the areas where they can have shelter, these are the areas where they can have their hideout. They can have their some training base and others. So that situation has been compounded. Whatever the conflict between the communities, again that has been compounded by the militancy in those areas.
As of now, the DGP says that they have been successful in bringing the militant groups to the talking table, and there are very few militant organizations left which are still on the loose. There's an invariable pattern which has been observed in the chronology of ethnic violence in Assam. The 12 assembly segments of the BTAD region have always been provoked whenever elections are around the corner, and this has resulted in heavy polarizing of the voters. Experts and analysts have always questioned the timing and have blamed the political leadership of not seriously dealing with the problem. The overriding feeling amongst experts is that the state government is unwilling to tackle the issue of ethnic violence. Some say it's a question of vote bank, while others feel that various militant organizations are even politically motivated at times.
All the caste and communities of Assam, our senior leaders have held many meetings with them. Their grievances, their requirements, what they feel, what they want from a political party like us. We have been in regular touch with all the leaders, all the cultural icons.
The reality is that the ethnic communities which lived as next-door neighbors for several decades now remain wary of each other. One thing is for sure, that the free flow of small and illegal arms to the surrendered and the non-surrendered militants has to be stalled immediately. Guns can only be a part of the problem, never a part of the solution. On that note, time for us to wrap up this show. From our entire team, which includes my camera persons Rajdeep, Sanjay and Bharatveer, goodbye and thanks for watching.